into the approach for building products and in AI and robotics, and in particular with a focus on product management aspects. Product management is an important discipline, so we will be deep diving into that to see how we get a product management initiative aligned in an AI robotics development phase. And finally, to look at the challenges and the opportunities. So that's what is the agenda. So I'm in slide 4. I hope you are able to see the slide, right? You are able to see the slide 4? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. I'll go ahead from here, so I'll not pass in between. So some of the definitions of artificial intelligence. See, artificial intelligence as a subject is already known to many people. It is no more something totally new, right? So people understand what is AI. In fact, common man understands what is AI. But I had what I have thought of putting up here is some clear definition to what is AI from one of the books, very important books in AI called Artificial Intelligence: A Modern Approach, which is widely considered as a Bible for AI, written by Professor Stuart J. Russell from UC Berkeley and Peter Norvig from Google. So what it says, so these two pictures that you're seeing on the left and right, so I have put up that based on my understanding, having read that, right? What it says is AI should, the left side, if you see the left side, so the picture there, what it shows is AI should have these key attributes. That is, it should be able to support thought process and reasoning, number one, rationality, behavior, in the sense it should be able to display cognitive behavioral aspects, and its action should have fidelity to human performance. So if a system is meeting these, then it can be called as an AI. That's what is told there. Okay, and the right side, it goes more specifically into these aspects. So thinking humanly, activities such as decision making, problem solving, etc. So which is doable programmatically through AI, right? Thinking rationally, activities such as perceive, reason, and act. So it is like how humans perceive and act on various things. The bottom part is acting humanly, perform intelligence driven functions in machines that require human perception. This is where the computer vision, audio, video analytics, and these things are coming. Natural language processing, right? These things are coming. And acting rationally. Acting rationally is very important because, see, produce the best expected outcome where there is uncertainty. See, humans can act on a lot of things, but now in today's world, with the mammoth amount of data that is getting generated, it is very difficult for humans to process them, right? So very quickly, it's very difficult. So that's where AI robots are needed. So even though they do that, they should be able to act rationally. That is very important. That is, given a particular situation, produce the best expected outcome, right? That's the key thing. So one of the things I would like to point out here is, see, in the COVID situation currently, right? So typically making vaccines itself was a very long process. Vaccine production used to take about a couple of years or so. Now we could see that the world could produce so many vaccines within hardly a year, right? That's what we saw. So these things are made ready through adoption of a lot of technology in the pharma sector, right? And AI has played a key role in making this happen. So that's one of the examples of acting rationally. So produce the best expected outcome when there is uncertainty, right? That's what it is. So going to the next slide. So this is some definitions for robotics. So we have seen the definitions for artificial intelligence. Now, in talking about robotics, one of the things I would like to mention is, see, the world's first robotic institute was founded in 1979 in Carnegie Mellon University. So CMU was a pioneer in the AI and robotics field particularly. And one of the professors there, he is no more now, Alan Newell, a AI pioneer and a computer science professor from CMU, had told it beautifully. That is, robotics function lies in the welding of intelligence to energy. It lies in intelligent perception and intelligent control of motion. The point is, see, till that point or before that, see, right now we are in the industry 4.0 world, right? So much before that, in the industrialization, energy was the key focus for everyone. So the question was about how do we harness energy for achieving various needs of the mankind. So robotics came when people started thinking that we need to bring in intelligence to energy. How do you build intelligence to energy? That is where robotics technology has taken shape. So that's what is told as intelligent perception and intelligent control of motion. The bottom picture I have taken from MIT. MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab, which is a leading lab in the field of AI and robotics, right? So this is a picture which they have produced. If you see this, the diagram is about an autonomous car here, right? The right side is showing we should have sensing capabilities. The robotics should have sensing capabilities, like what we saw earlier, like humans, how we sense. It should be able to sense things, and then it should be able to, on the other end, it should be able to actuate. That is, produce various actions. In between happens the computation. So that's what. So having sensed the information, it does a lot of computation, heavy computation, and quickly comes up with the actuation. So that's what is. So for robotics, the sensing, then the actuation. These two are connected through the computation. That's where the intelligence is coming in. So with these two definitions, I'd like to straight get into industry applications, right? So when it comes to industry, McKinsey is the star of industry studies. So I have just taken here reference from a McKinsey Global Institute report, which shows that the potential for AI, right? So the potential for AI is vast actually. So it is totaling to the range of $3.5 trillion to $5.8 trillion. So that's what is told here, and they have clearly segregated the various industries where it is, depending upon the opportunity size, right? Robotics, you see, is very high. Retail, you see, is very high. Retail is shown as about 650, $700 billion opportunity. Then travel, logistics, right? And then all the industry domains you can see here, right? So the manufacturing, the agriculture, insurance, healthcare is shown as some 300 odd billion dollar. I'm sure that it has increased even more with COVID. This report was produced before COVID. So with COVID, it has increased a lot more. So the potential for AI and robotics, right? So within AI, robotics is a subset, I would say, where the intelligence aspect is coming into machines. That's where the AI and robotics come together, right? So many of these AI applications might have robotics within that, right? So basically, the point is, it is no more a science fiction. AI and robotics are no more science fiction, and it is time that the industry is looking forward to adopt this heavily, right? So some of the industry domain applications, as I mentioned, I'll touch upon two domains. One is insurance. The first one is insurance. So insurance domain, some high-level use cases, very high-level use cases. So the typical insurance domain. See, insurance falls under three categories. One is property and casualty, which is the kind of the general insurance, which we call in India. US, they call it P&C, property and casualty. Then life insurance, then health insurance, these three, right? So within each and every one, fast tracking claims is a key aspect. Claims management is a key thing. See, why do we take insurance? It is because we want to claim them when something, some event happens, right? So fast tracking of claims is very important. Then accelerate underwriting. Underwriting comes before a policy is issued. So it is very complicated calculation using a lot of statistical techniques and all. So that's also an area where AI and robotics can be used. Boost customer experience. I just put three, but it is a lot more. It is not just these three. I just put very high level use cases, right? So in the next slide, I am in slide 9. I'm in slide 9 here. I hope you're able to see the picture that I got here. You're able to see this, right? So this is yeah. So this is a picture on motor. I have created this picture based on my understanding of the motor vehicle claims process. Through this, what I wanted to show is, see, how do you go about defining a problem statement, right? So how do you go about? It's very key that you are able to define a problem statement clearly, and that is possible only if the process is defined clearly. End-to-end process should be defined clearly. So here what I have tried is to depict an end-to-end process for motor vehicle claims process, right? So you see this picture. So there's an insured person who is initiating a claim for through some mobile app. So and then the mobile app internally calls the AI processes within that. So a drone comes, and then the drone is taking the picture of, say, if somebody had got an accident, which is what we'll see in a subsequent video there. So this is the picture of the process involved. A drone coming and then taking a picture automatically of the damaged vehicle, and then this is passed along to the AI models, which is running in cloud most probably, and then the AI model processes that and then comes up with the damage level assessment, and then it tells what kind of risk are involved in this. Should we repair this or else replace a part, or what would be it? What are the optimal price settings for that and everything? So these things are possible. These things can be automated through AI, right? So the within this, the blocks, the middle two blocks that I have shown, they are AI, and then it hands over its result to a claims personnel for verification, and that the claims personnel is a human being. So that's where the interaction happens between the AI and the human, and then the final decision is taken by that claims personnel, saying, hey, for this claim, this is the action we can take. We can accept this, and then we can pay this, or else we will deny this because we are not seeing it genuine or whatever be it. So the end-to-end process involves a combination of some automation, and which are the aspects here that we can automate using AI or robots, and then where the handshake happens with a human being, and then the final decision by the human. So this is a sample of the end-to-end process that I've shown. The next slide is a video which is demonstrating this. This is a beautiful case of a video from YouTube that I have taken as a reference. I think the audio won't come. I will run it on mute, and then I hope you are unable to hear the audio, right? So I will speak through this. So here you see an accident has happened, and then the first person, the person with the black coat, he's having an app which is an AI enabled insurance policy claim, right? Claim process. So for him, an accident happened automatically. He's talking to his phone, actually. That's what he's doing. And then whereas the person behind, his insurance is a manual, which is an old age insurance, where he's trying to call the insurance company. He's suffering there, right? Whereas this person is very cool, right? This white coat person is trying to talk to the customer service, and then having a lot of problems. Here you see this person is very cool. Both of them are involved in the same accident, and the first person's company has automatically sent a drone. So the drone has already seen where the accident happened. It has taken the pictures of the damage, and then the app is talking to him in real time, saying, hey, these are the pictures which you have taken. Whereas the other person is still trying to contact his insurance company, right? Here you see how fast the process goes through, and then here once it takes the picture, it does the assessment, and then it has, within minutes, it has shown in the picture saying, hey, these are the issues that we have seen. Do you agree to this? Do you have an agreement to this claim? Then we can process this claim. And in real time, he is saying, yeah, I agree, send the claim. So the claim is submitted, and then the models do the algorithm part of handling the claim, and automatically they sent him an Uber and a tow truck so that the vehicle can be taken, and then this person is taken in an Uber to wherever he wants to go, right? Whereas the person standing behind, he has a very old age insurance company which is not able to help him in time, and then see the struggle that he goes through, right? So this is a beautiful the scenario where how insurance policy can be automated through AI robotics. I hope you got the picture of the scenario through whatever I have explained, right? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the next, I will go to the next slide. The next slide is another domain application, and this is on healthcare and medical diagnostics. Okay. So I am on slide 12, AI robotics in medical diagnostics. So one of the reasons I have put medical diagnostics is because I have some experience. I have worked in a medical diagnostics startup that does artificial intelligence and robotics for AI. It's a startup based in Bangalore here, and through that I had a lot of first-hand experience. I was handling the product management there, so I have a lot of first-hand experience in learning this and then understanding how things work, right? So medical diagnostics is a very important field. As we all know, with COVID, the importance for medical technology is even more, right? So that's the case now. So one of the key driver factors there is the abysmal doctor-patient ratio is a major problem faced across the world. So the world, as per the World Health Organization mandate, the doctor-to-patient ratio should be 1:1,000. For 1,000 people, there should be at least one doctor. That's what WHO is mandating. But in real world, especially the developing countries and the underdeveloped countries, it is the situation is really pathetic. So in India, I would say the situation is about 1:1,500. The WHO mandate is 1:1,000, but in India, what they're telling is the ratio is for 1,500 people we have a doctor. And this is if you consider maybe fields like homeopathy, Ayurveda, it might come down a bit to 1,300 or 1,200, but still it is not in the 1:1,000 ratio. And forget doctor, we need specific speciality of doctors, right? For a pathology, you need a pathologist. If you are given a blood test, you need a pathologist to look at that. For an eye test, you need an ophthalmologist to look at that. For a radiology, you need a radiologist to look at that. And that ratio is a lot more difficult to obtain, and it will never be in this ratio of 1:1,000, right? So this gap can be filled through AI. That's what these AI companies are trying to do by building AI and robotics applications for medical diagnostics. That's what they are doing, right? So next slide is a sample from one of these startups named IDX. IDX is a US-based startup focusing on diabetic retinopathy detection. So diabetic retinopathy is a very disease that needs to be taken care for people with acute diabetics problem, right? So just see this video. I will, as earlier, I will talk through that. I will just run through the video and then talk through it. So what it is showing is diabetic retinopathy is a common cause for vision loss, right? And he's the founder of IDX. Basically, he's a person, he's a doctor, and he did his, he's an MD and PhD, you can see. His PhD is actually in machine learning and computer science machine learning area. He is a doctor who has taken an MD in ophthalmology, and he has done his startup. See, they have made this diabetic retinopathy detection device, which is a robotic device, right? If we go to ophthalmologists, doctors look at our eye through a device, right? So it is equivalent of that device that they have made here. So you can see this device being operated by a technician as opposed to a doctor. Typically, when we go, a doctor will have to do this, whereas in this case, a technician is able to do that because the robotics process is internally doing the job of the doctor, right? And it provides a beautiful, simple interface which can be handled by the technician, right? It makes the process much simple. And as I told earlier, the doctor-patient ratio for ophthalmology is getting solved through this problem, right? And you can see the report for diabetic retinopathy coming within minutes of doing this, right? It comes with all the details. And the beauty is this report will be available over the internet, so the doctors from across the world, from anywhere, can see this report on their tab or on mobile or whatever be it, right? So it makes it accessible, affordable, and accurate. So these are the three key drivers for medical diagnostics, right? So what they are saying is, see, getting this ready, one of the things is regulatory compliance is a very important factor that decides whether this device can be put into use or not. And IDX obtained the world's first regulatory compliance approval from US FDA, US Food and Drug Administrator, FDA. US FDA is the key authority in approving any product. As we know, even for COVID vaccines and everything, it is US FDA approval that matters, right? So US FDA approval is obtained for IDX, which is an AI robotics enabled eye diagnosis device, right? It has been approved. In fact, US FDA learned a lot how to approve an AI application. In fact, that's what they have told, right? So the beauty is such things are big, were science fiction earlier, which is becoming a reality now, right? So now we will go into approach. So approach for building products around AI robotics. So I am in slide 15. I hope you were able to see this picture in slide 15. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a diagram that I have put up for AI and robotics based automation. See the just once again. Excuse me. Yeah. Solution aspects involved in creating an AI robotics application is actually very wide, and that's what I wanted to show here. So I have put up this based on my experience from the field. As I told, I have worked with the medical diagnostics company, which applies AI, deep learning, image processing, robotics, and everything, right? So a similar case, like the case of IDX we saw, right? What could be a generic architecture? So that's what I have tried to put here. In an AI robotics field, three things are important. Number one is the sense aspect. As we saw earlier, right at the definition, the sensing capability is very important. And second is think. That's where the computing comes, where the algorithms come. And finally, the act part. That's where the actuators come. That's where the mechanical aspects come, right? So the sense part, you see, it involves hardware. So it needs to have the proper hardware to do the sensing, and that's where robots, drones, IoT, these things are coming. Edge computing is key there. As far as the software is concerned, the software should be able to run on the edge, in the sense it should be able to run on the device. That's very important. In the case of IDX, what we saw, a computer is running within the device, that AI robotic eye diagnostics device, right? So that edge computing is very key there. And it should be able to sense vision, like how a human perceives, or touch, or speech language, whatever is needed there, right? In that case, it is a vision actually. And then the data gets transmitted over secure network into the cloud, and the cloud computing, within cloud computing, AI algorithms and various software will be running. Mostly it is deep learning, so neural networks and deep learning. That's what I have shown here. But it's not necessarily only deep learning. It could be a combination of various algorithms, like, for example, it could be some clustering, it could be some decision tree or whatever be it, right? Finally, it will be an ensemble of various models. That's what will produce the result like what we saw earlier in that video, right? So it will be a combination. It's an ensemble of models. So that's the think part. And then finally, after the thought process happens, the data gets transmitted again over secure network into the action part. The action is also hardware. It is essentially the same robot in most of the cases. So which will do the action for whatever is needed, either produce a report or else if it's a robot that is supposed to lift an object and move here or whatever we do, it's supposed to do whatever is needed there, right? So the end-to-end thing is the complexity of the nature of technical aspects involved here, right? Even though it is technology breadth, one very key aspect I'd like to stress is business domain knowledge is very key across all the three stages: sense, think, and act. Your business domain knowledge in sense and think is very important. Only if it is correct, your act will happen properly, or else it can go wrong. So we'll see how that is important, how things work down in subsequent slides. But meanwhile, I wanted to set this context clearly here. So I hope you got the picture of this, right? So skills involved in realizing an end-to-end product. As I mentioned, business domain knowledge is very key, which I mentioned already. Robotics hardware skills are very important. So robotics hardware skill is a different skill from the regular software side, and I hope many people here from the background. So okay, I saw a question from someone asking what is the business domain knowledge. Business domain knowledge is knowledge about the said domain, industry domain. Here, when the example is see the ophthalmologist case, it is about a ophthalmologist knowledge. So if you are building a robot for doing that ophthalmology testing, then you need to have a doctor who is an ophthalmologist who will work closely with your team in helping understand the problem, in helping define how the sense, think, and acts will be conceived in the technical solution, and then who will provide the directions and then validate the final product. So that is the business domain. If the business domain is about applying robots or AI into maybe another field, maybe say retail, for example, a warehouse management, then you need expert from the warehouse management or the retail function who will come and sit with the technology team and helping defining what is what to realize the solution, right? So robotics hardware we talked, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science skills are vital for model building, testing, and validation. Then the broader software skills, it's all about digital product development, right? So in the conventional product development, the days are over. This is about digital product development. So everything is on cloud. Then mobile apps are the default expectation. Like we saw the example of the insurance claims process, right? So see, finally, to the end user, you just give a mobile app. That's all. He doesn't have to interact with a very complex system. Just do all your complexities in the back end and provide a beautiful mobile app, and the user will be very happy. He will use it, right? So, and then various other things like DevOps, APIs testing, and all. So the digital product development skill from the software is very key. And then the final last two are very important. Innovation is a key aspect. Innovation, how do you bring out innovation? Again, innovation is a beautiful word to tell, but how do you bring out innovation? That is a key question, right? So one of the approaches that I am familiar with is design thinking. So I don't know how many people are aware of it. So now it is actually common. So a few years back, it was not commonly known. Now design thinking is a principle being applied everywhere. There's a slide I got where I will talk more about that. Product management, the final point is product management is a central force which weaves together all these various skills in realizing the product, right? In many cases, product management is the role that involves business ownership of the product or the portfolio. That's why product management is very important to stress. And then the remaining part of the presentation, I'll be focusing more on product management. Okay. So this part, is it clear? If we want to ask some question quickly, like what I saw from someone, please feel free to send it across or even stop me and then ask me, no problem. Anyway, towards the end, we'll have a Q&A, okay? But if things are not understood then and there, please feel free to ask, no problem. So are we fine till here? Okay, I assume we are fine. So So we will go ahead. So I am in getting into the product management slides. Slide 18. What is product management? So product management, as I told, is about bringing in the weaving together all the different parties involved in creating a product, right? So product management as a concept exists for many years. Okay. So what I understood is Procter and Gamble used to define things called as product management way back in 1931 when they had these consumable products, which were a key thing focus then, right? From there, product management as a concept got evolved into the software field later in the 80s and all 70s, 80s. And in today's digital and AI world, it is even a lot more prevalent. Because see, the final point is very key there, especially as students and prospective candidates to be employed in various industry. You should be aware of this. See, key IT development projects are adhering to product management concept across the industry. This is not only necessarily in product companies. Even services companies adopt a product management centric approach. Even captives like foreign banks, for example, who have got office in India, right? Or insurance companies or e-commerce companies, they all adopt product management actually. So product management is a key thing. And the picture on the right side is a picture taken from a source from Netherlands. So this displays clearly the complexities involved in the product management. But what you have to understand are two things. Right side is the internal stakeholders. A software product manager needs to handle two aspects. One is the internal stakeholders, which is shown in the right side, and then the external stakeholders, which is shown in the left side, right? Internal stakeholders are your company decision makers, like your company board, the sales team, marketing, R&D, development, support services, and lot more, right? External team, very key, are your market, that is the customers and partners. So apart from this, so the activities are, there are a lot of activities involved. Some activities are shown here. It could be a lot more. Okay. We'll see how does this apply to AI and robotics. So this is a picture that I have put up based on my understanding and having worked in product management for specifically for AI and robotics. As I told with the startup that I worked, right, and then with the others that I consult. This is one of the key things. AI robotics product management in itself is a different beast altogether. Okay, so the key aspects involved are what I try to show here in the hub and spoke model here, right? So the various spokes will go through business ownership, as we already told. Business product manager is the business owner for that product. The vision, product vision, is very important. For every point here, I have a slide. So we will talk through them briefly right now, and then we'll go through the slides in detail, right? Innovation and user experience, we will see how design thinking is applied here. Data sets and data science is a key aspect. Handling that, there are a lot of things involved. Partnerships and contracts, not everything can be made by one company. So partnerships are key and contracts are key. Software development, we talked about that. Robotics, hardware, we talked about that. Business domain, intellectual property. We talked about business domain. Intellectual property is you should be able to safeguard your product through various IP framework, right? And then the final, ethics, regulatory compliance, and program delivery. All these are very, very important. I would say the program delivery is the most important thing. That is where the project management or the program management things come. I have a slide which will talk more through this, each and every item here. The first one is the product vision. Product vision for AI robotics. This is very important to become an AI entrepreneur or a startup founder. I understand a lot of students come up with idea during their college days. They do some experiments within the college, right? And many of them would have an aspiration to become an entrepreneur or to be a startup founder, right? So some of the points that I have jotted down here is I have about 12 points that are in order, right? Product vision is very key. Product vision is about identification of a relevant problem. As we saw earlier, right? The medical diagnostics or the insurance or whatever be it. Those are people who have identified saying, hey, this is the problem that I want to crack very clearly. So it shouldn't be vague. and passion to solve the problem is very important. And because it's not enough that we visualize the problem statement, but we should have a passion to solve the problem and a feasible solution. About a solution, there should be an idea. That's very important. If you have an idea, you can develop over that, right? In AI, following aspects, if you have the first three, then look at the next 5 points. In AI, now you have a feasible solution in mind. Okay, I know that I want to apply AI in robotics. What do I need? Business domain knowledge is key. We just talked about that. So if you need business domain knowledge expert, then hire from the get a partner, right? If you're putting a healthcare product, then get a doctor or someone from the healthcare industry as your partner, right? Is there a relevant data source? If not, look at how to get one. So data is the key thing, right? So how do you get enough data source? Finally, it is data which is driving the success of all AI and robotics. So data source is very important. Building the data set, right? Your corpus. Then the data quality. Data will not be ready for consumption. So building data quality measures. Data annotation. See, doctors, I told you, doctors are hired in AI companies, AI robotics companies, in producing the products like what we saw. They help in annotating, in annotating images of, say, blood sample or radiology, X-rays or whatever be it, right? In saying, annotating that, saying this is this part is this blood is RBC, platelet, whatever be it. They will annotate in several, thousands or millions. And it is that annotation which helps in training your model. And that is how the model learns. Otherwise, where from the model will know what is what, right? It is this annotation. So in robotics, particularly hardware needs will have a lot of dependencies. Okay. So hardware is a different beast altogether, and its dependencies are a lot more. As I told, partnerships are very key there. So one organization cannot make everything by itself. They'll have to partner with various external parties. Other aspects, technology solution aspects, product management, skill set, and team formation, budget and timeline. Budget and timeline is something which typically will get into proper shape only if you go through a startup incubation program or have some mentors, dedicated mentors who are experts in this, right? So this is a diagram about design thinking. As I mentioned earlier, design thinking is an approach which is very popular now. I learned about design thinking from Haas School of Business, UC Berkeley. It is that diagram which I put here, right? So design thinking, what it does is it puts the customer or the end user into the center of the perspective. So in this diagram, you can assume that at the center is my customer. If I want to build something which the customer will accept, that's what I have to understand clearly. Then how do I go about that? That approach is what is design thinking. There are 4 stages. The first one is observation through ethnographic interviews. So there are various techniques of interviewing your potential customer or user. Ethnographic interview is one way here. Through that is without going fully prepared and then trying to elicit the points in an informal way. That is what is ethnographic interview. So through interviews, observations happen. You observe what is the problem statement, then analyze that, and the analysis comes out with various insights. Various empathy maps are created. Customer journey map, for example. What is the customer journey map for my problem? That is, where will the customer, at what stage the customer will start looking at my product? How will he use it? How will he finally end the usage of that so that he gets the required output? So you have to understand all these things. That's where the insight is coming. And if these insights are defined clearly, an abstract idea will come for the solution. Now those ideas will have to be discussed within the team and finally arrive at a convergence of solution. Synthesis of solutions is what is happening here. And the synthesis will have to be validated through various experiments. So, and then the whole cycle keeps on going. And as you go through the cycle, a concrete solution will come out clearly, right? It's an iterative process. It is not just in one shot. Iteration is very key. Learning is very key. Experiential learning is the key aspect here, right? That's what is design thinking. So if anyone has got any question in design thinking, let me know, or else you can think through, and at the end also we can discuss. Okay. Okay, I'll go to the next slide. So data related. So industry adoption of AI robotics. What are the data related key points that you have to be aware, right? Big data. So in most of the cases, it is no more just the RDBMS days, right? The structured and unstructured data needs to be dealt with here. For example, all the images and videos that we saw, right? Those are all unstructured data. So that's where big data is coming into picture, and you need the technology expertise in handling big data. That is a key aspect. Then data infrastructure. So if you have all these data, how do you handle them? In what kind of systems do you store them and process them, right? So that's where cloud computing is coming. Cloud computing is very key here, right? It can be done on-premise, but normal on-premise days are gone. The scalability won't be achieved through on-premise. So that's why cloud computing is very key. Amazon, AWS, right? Amazon, AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud. These are the three most popular cloud platforms, which you people might be already aware, right? And then the data engineering. Data engineering is said to be a cousin of data science, right? It is not as flashy or as popular as data science, but without data engineering, data science won't succeed. That is very clear. Data engineering is about the engineering aspects of data. That is, if the infrastructure stores the data, you have to take that and process it, cleanse it, process it, make it ready for consumption. That is where data lakes, data warehouse, these technologies are coming in. And then data ops, ML ops, these are all some techniques. Okay, these are all very important now. We are catching up very well in the software domain. And just I have put here the names, but we will not cover them in detail, right? All I wanted to say is be aware of these. These are keywords. So some of you might know this already, but if not, please be aware of this. For students, just understand what is data engineering. Within that, what is data ops, ML ops. So these are all key aspects. Then there is another side of data, which is the cultural side. That is very important, right? We saw the technology slide, earlier slide. This is about the cultural slide. So AI-enabled automation needs to be built up as a culture within the organization. Otherwise, people will not accept an AI or robotics device. This is something which I have seen through my own personal experience. The robot that we make, if we go and put it in a customer side, they will not use it simply. That culture needs to be built, and it's not easy. It involves a long process of training them and making their mindset ready for adoption. Data-driven decision making is another key thing, right? Automation through data-driven decision making is another key aspect here. Program delivery management, right? Which is essentially the project management and then the broader end-to-end program. So as we saw earlier in that product management slide, right? There are various aspects involved, a lot of different technologies, a lot of different people. We saw the right side and left side aspects, right? The internal and external. This is pertaining more to the internal. Program or delivery management is pertaining more to the internal aspects. If we have all the technology and we know how to build it, getting the program management executed successfully to realize the product is very key. And the standard software development is following a waterfall model earlier. Now it is agile. So I'm sure agile many people will be aware of. If not, you have to be aware about agile programming techniques, agile development. Agile is about developing your software product within and then pushing them into production in various incremental stages over 2 to 3 weeks, once in 2 to 3 weeks, and then building your products in small steps incrementally, and also tracking the learnings at each and every stage and then improving the product, right? So however, for AI robotics, it's a different, it has got new, totally different dimensions. Data science is mostly experimental in nature, especially early to mid stages, beyond which can be agile. If something has to be purely experimental, you cannot define an agile regimen there. It's not easy. So it has got to be experimental in nature. Yes, SDLC methodology is software development life cycle, right? Your software development happens through few stages. The first one is requirements understanding, right? You want to understand the requirement. What are the requirements? That's where I told to understand the requirement of an AI product. If it is a diabetic retinopathy like what we saw, you need a ophthalmologist there clearly to define what is needed there, right? What is needed for patients. So to define the requirements, the pure functional requirements. Then comes the technology aspect. Some engineers will define the will design the solution. In designing, they should be in conjunction with what is needed in the solution. So purely technical people, if they do it all alone, especially in the case of AI robotics, it may not succeed. So it's a combination of people with business analytics skills and technology people. So that's where business analysis or business analytics comes as a key field. Once so you define, then you decide, then you develop. If you designed your solution, then you develop it. The development can happen in one shot for the whole product, or else it can happen in iteration. So that's where the agile aspect came. So if everything is happening in one shot, that is, I know I have defined everything, I have designed my entire solution. In the next 6 months, I will work in one shot and make my product. That approach is a traditional approach, which is called waterfall model. But today in digital technology world, that doesn't apply because it doesn't succeed. An end user will have to wait for 6 months, and finally the product, if it's not meeting the requirements, will fail. Hence, agile methodology came in. Modern SDLC methodology is agile methodology. That's what I told. Agile is, if you have designed your solution, start developing your code quickly, and then develop only 1 or 2 functionalities and push them into production. Give it to your user. User will start seeing it, and then gradually you will build the product, and then pushing it to production, right? Agile is more of a safer approach of developing products, because customer gets to see the product upfront quickly and provide any feedback, so that the product improves and you do not have to wait for 6 months to realize a product, right? So SDLC, the SDLC technique that you people should be aware of is agile development, right? That's what I meant here. The last point, robotics is also experimental in nature. So robotics also early stage, like data science, is very experimental in nature. Beyond which, if you know everything, then you can set up a factory mode. Factory mode is a typical assembly line type of production, right? That's where you'll have to have a lot of external partners. For example, a startup doing robotics hardware need not have a capability to set up a factory. They can engage in partnership with some contract manufacturer. If they design everything and they know this is what has to be developed, as far as the hardware product is concerned, they transfer the technology to a hardware partner, which is typically a contract manufacturing company, and then they will do a assembly line type of manufacturing, right? So the program delivery management is about managing this whole thing, right? In an AI robotics, all these things are coming. Software development has got waterfall agile method. Data science has got some experimental methods. Robotics has got an experimental and a factory mode. Bringing it all together into a single end-to-end process. That is what is a program delivery management. And that's where project managers who are successful in this, they become very successful program managers, right? That's a key aspect. Then this slide is about some key considerations for robotics. So how do you make your robotics adoption successful? As I told, see, even if you make robotics ready, the industry will not simply adopt it. If you make a robotics which will do medical diagnostics, like what we saw earlier, medical diagnostics labs or hospitals will not simply adopt it. So there are some techniques or some ways of achieving that. One is that there are a lot of challenges, right? But three key points that I wanted to bring out here is, see, robotics is about sense, think, and act that we saw, right? So the key things are make it simpler to apply. The use case that you define for a robotics should be a simple use case. So everything need not be simple. For example, robotics is used even medical surgery, right? Which is not at all simple, which we know. But then break down that problem into a lot of simpler steps, right? And attack each and every simple step and then build the product through that. So make it simpler to apply. That is very important. And then the use cases have to be defined here, like what we saw earlier, right upfront. I had shown a use case diagram for the claims process. Similar use case should be defined, and then there will be simulation software. For example, computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing softwares are used in simulating the entire approach, right? So those are all techniques of making it simpler to apply, simpler to connect. Your robotics system, once developed, should sit within a broader ecosystem. It should integrate with other systems. For example, you are making a robot in a factory. It will be only automating one part of the factory process, right? So before that and after that, there are processes. So it should be able to integrate clearly without that's what is meant as simpler to connect. And the action part is very key. It will happen only if the entire robotics product is simpler to run. For example, see that claims process video we saw. It is very simple to run it, right? So they have say it's a complex product actually. Behind there are a lot of robotics and AI involved, but they have given a beautiful mobile app, and for the end user, nothing. He has to install that app, keep the app running. That's all, right? Keep his mobile data and GPS on. That's all what he did. And his car hit, immediately the app recognized it. It interacted with him. He confirmed, yes, saying, I have a problem. I hit this car. Then it processed internally behind the scene, at the back end. A drone was sent automatically. It took the photos, and then finally it took a confirmation from him saying these are the damages and file the claim, right? So it's a simple interface. So it should be simple to run. That's very important. If you make a robot and make it very complex for users to use it, users will not use it. Forget it. Even if it is simple, people will not use it easily. As I told, it's a cultural question and that will take time. More and more, if it's a complex product, it's a lot more difficult, right? So three principles are simpler to apply, simpler to connect, simpler to run. These three are some key driver factors in making a robotics adoption successful. This is a slide on the ethics part of robot. I am sure a lot of people hear about ethics in the aspect of robot and AI, right? To make your robots or AI complying to the ethical norms? That is a key question. A lot of government policy formulators, complaints committees, and a lot of people are debating about. One thing that came to my mind is look at Asimov's laws of robotics. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about Isaac Asimov, who was a who has written a lot of stories about robots and their applications, right? So define beautiful three laws. One is a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come into harm. Number two, a robot must obey orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. Third is a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first and second law. What it is saying is a robot should obey whatever a human says, and it should take care of the human being. Second law says that if a human being, if the order is to harm a human being, it shouldn't do that. The robot shouldn't do that. Third thing is a robot must also protect itself. It shouldn't get into trouble by itself without conflicting law 1 and 2. Without affecting the humans involved, it should be able to protect itself. How do you make robots So some of the key aspects of ethics, right? So are there on the left side. So ethics types, data ethics, process ethics, algorithmic ethics, and validation ethics. Data from different types. See, when data is taken for process, the data shouldn't get into bias. That's what I mentioned in the next point. Major factors: bias, traceability, interpretability, explainability. Data shouldn't have bias. If in the US that retinopathy, diabetic retinopathy case we saw, right? I mentioned that US FDA has done the approval. They will not approve if the data has got a bias. In the sense, oh, robots getting. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So someone was asking how robot gets to know what is right and what is wrong. So we have to, when we define so the points on the left side here, ethics types, ethic major factors, right? Those are key here. So data ethics, what I mean is, see, if data is collected from a certain sector of people, that is not sufficient. The US FDA, when it approved the diabetic retinopathy device, they will look at, okay, is the what kind of races of people have been tested against this. If it is only against one race, this is not acceptable. Have they considered all the race and all the people in the world, right? Or at least a considerable population. Similarly, process ethics. I mentioned that for everything you should define an end-to-end process, right? If the process has got a loophole within that, then that is not possible. You put loophole and then you put an AI for that. That's not right, right? So the process ethics is very key. Algorithmic ethics, algorithmic bias should not be the validation ethics. So validation should be done properly. As I told, doctors validate the algorithms that are defined for your pathology services or diagnostics labs or whatever be it. If the validation is not done correctly, it will go for a toss, right? So those are all the aspects. If you take care of these aspects, your ethical aspects are taken care. That's what is meant. Some of the major factors are bias, talked about that. Traceability. Can you go see if an AI gives an output, can you trace from the output back to input? And then see how things worked end to end. Traceability is not possible in the case of deep learning, which is a black box, whereas it is possible in the non-deep learning side of machine learning actually. But even within deep learning, industry people and academicians are researching to understand how to develop traceability and interpretability. Interpretability is for a given data, what is the output that I am expecting, and what did this program give me? So the program should be able to interpret that. So as a user, you should be able to interpret that through the algorithm. The algorithm should be able to explain that also. That is what is explainability. So the traceability, interpretability, explainability, bias, these are all key factors. So if an AI robotics product is being developed to meet the ethical norms set by government or policy formulators, if we have enough implementation of meeting these, then that will help meet that. That is the example. For example, the diabetic retinopathy case, they have met that. That is why they got the US FDA approval. Without that, US FDA will not approve, right? For example, vaccine cases, we are seeing a lot of new vaccines are getting approved, right? Because the again in India, we have got our own approval authorities. Drug Control Authority is an approval, right? ISO is a standard. ISO, we all know, right? International Standards Organization. So ISO has got various mandates for approving. So there are also all these are regulatory compliance needs, and then through that, it is being defined how to build robots and then make them meet ethical standards, right? So challenges, opportunities, and concluding thoughts. Challenges, we already talked about a lot of challenges. One of some few points that I have still mentioned here are, see, even though AI adoption is happening, only few have reached a maturation stage. A lot of industry is still in experimental stage, early stage or experimental stage. Maturation is happening only slowly. So there are reasons for that. One is a cultural challenge. As I mentioned, people will not accept an AI, or the user community will not accept an AI or robotics solution easily. So it involves cultural change, and how to deal with culture. That's where one of the techniques I mentioned is design thinking. That's a technique for approaching the cultural challenge, I would say. Then volume of data set availability for training various areas is difficult. For example, regulated areas like healthcare, finance, it is difficult to get the data. Hence, it is not easy, right? So that's where partnerships are coming into picture. Only through proper partnerships, if they are formed, you can get those data. Ethical and regulatory compliance, we talked about that already in the previous slide. Then the final point is very of lot of interest to students, I would say. There is a wide gap between need and availability of appropriately skilled manpower to develop and implement AI robotics products, right? So this is where you can see this challenge as an opportunity also, right? Like every challenge can be an opportunity for your students. I would say the gap in the market is an opportunity for you people. This is a new field, so there are not a lot of many people who have the available skill set. So that is where during your student days, apart from your studies, build the skill set in related areas that will help in meeting the job market requirement. Right? The next slide is a slide from MIT Sloan Management Review that I have taken here. Some new roles are also getting created in this industry of AI, right? What are those? Trainers. For example, these are purely roles that have been created by AI requirement only. It was not existing earlier. Okay. Trainers are people who will be the domain, but the business domain part we talked, right? So people who will train a said algorithm, right? So I mentioned about annotations. So you need annotators, people who can annotate, come and annotate your data. That is a key role. Explainers. So people who can sit and explain with your development team, that is your data scientists, your AI engineers, your other software engineers, as to how a product should be developed. This is where I mentioned that doctors work in software companies, right? They sit and work with these engineers in explaining them what is what. So they help in setting the context. They help analyze the product, validate its usage and everything. So explainers is a key need now based on various business domain needs. Then the sustainers are the people like ethics who help meet ethical standards. And then the final point there is machine relations manager. There is also something mentioned here saying, see, today we have got HR, human resources manager, right? Tomorrow, when we got a lot of machines performing various business functions, apart from HR, there will be MR, machine relations manager, right? That's what is mentioned here. So these are all new roles that are getting created in the job market. My concluding thoughts: students and young engineers can look at AI robotics as a career path, right? It is very interdisciplinary in nature. That's what we saw. The opportunities are wide. For those wanting to venture into startup or entrepreneurship, product management is vital for success. I hope I was able to give a brief view about what is product management. I hope you might have got a picture today. So apart from product management, people who want to get into venture or in entrepreneurship need to study the broader aspects of management, which is about getting mentorship from startup incubators or some mentors, right? And the final point is AI robotics is a research subject across different areas: engineering, computer science, management, various diverse fields, medicine, law, finance, right? Highly sought after career option now, right? So these are my concluding thoughts. So pretty much, I hope I have overshot the time. Anyway, we start a bit late, right? So we have got few minutes for questions. So pretty much that's it from me. So we can open it up for discussion. Thank you.
We hope that you learned something new and better. We are open to all your queries, so please send it to us via chat. Also, I would like to inform that feedback link has been shared, so you can access it through your chat box. And please share your valuable feedback with us so that you receive your certificates timely.
So I saw a couple of questions. One is how to go about starting humanoid robot using startup. So I would say, see, for any startup, see, the problem statement, as I told, see, the humanoid aspect is a solution, but are you aware of the problem? See, first look at the problem. In what scenario a humanoid will be needed? And then, what will it help solve? So study the problem part. If the problem part is clear and you know that this needs a humanoid to solve it, then look at humanoid as a solution, and then get into the other aspects of getting into a startup. For example, in one slide I had shown how to go about with what are the there are 12 points that I mentioned, right? So your product vision, then the AI aspects like data and other things, then finally the broader aspects like product management, technology aspects and things. So first of all, define your problem statement, and if the solution needs humanoid, then decide on that, then go for it. That's the way to go. That's one question I saw. Then question I saw in between asking about ethics only again, right? Ethics. See, ethics is a very broad topic. So a lot of research is happening in that, both in the academic and industry, right? Government has set up a lot of ethical bodies to regulate this. That's where regulatory bodies are coming. Apart from that, I know IEEE has got some ethics committees. Actually, I happen to be part of one. So the question is asked how to restrict or minimize the privacy or immunalistic issues raised by AI-enabled devices. Okay, minimize or
Sir, I
yeah,
have a question. Hello, sir.
yeah. Let me finish answering this.
Okay,
Asta had asked the question how to limit the immoralistic aspects of in AI adoption, right? In using AI. So Asta, the point is, this is one of the things, for example, social media like Facebook is facing, right? So Facebook and then Twitter, whatnot, YouTube, where would be immoralistic actions can happen. So the point is, see, you need AI for catching what is immoral. So, for example, this is where natural language understanding, NLU, comes into picture. I would say in social media, if someone writes a sentence, does it imply something immoral? Again, it could be an implied meaning, right? People will not explicitly say something wrong, but it could be implied also. So that's where natural language processing, natural language understanding, and all coming into picture. So Facebook kind of companies have very mature AI practice, which is put into use in identifying this. Apart from that, they use people. They outsource a lot of work about identifying immoral content in their in Facebook and YouTube. There are some companies which do that. It's a very low end job actually, but there are some companies which do that, which make people to identify that and then flag them, and then they are stopped from getting published, right? So those are some ways. So yeah, I think someone had a question there.
Yes, sir. Actually, I needed to ask that for students like us who are in college who need to work upon the project, like projects basically related to AI. So what will be the best prototyping platform and the language that can be used to work for the initial stage?
Okay, so you see, one of the things is, for AI adoption, you can use, there are a lot of languages available, right? But I would say Python is the general preferred language, and then various platforms that support Python program, right? So Python is the key there as far as language is concerned. So for example, scikit-learn is a platform where you can start with your Python coding, right? And it has got various libraries like NumPy, Matplotlib, right? So for plotting your output and everything, NumPy, these libraries help you to program in numerical analysis and these things. That's a simple one. Then
Okay,
TensorFlow is see, for AI, for hardcore AI, where you want to use neural networks or deep learning. go for a platform like TensorFlow. TensorFlow is an open source platform from Google, right? But then you should have a certain level of understanding about Python. Only then you will be able to scale up to a TensorFlow need. And then TensorFlow, if you understand the concepts of neural networks and deep learning, then TensorFlow will help in your development effort easily, right? That's what it is. Any other question? Is someone? I see some questions popping in, but as I speak, I might miss them. So, is someone going to list out the questions, or we can? If there are other people, maybe you can talk better, and I can talk one to one. That will be good.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. One of the student, Mansi, is asking, can the development of artificial intelligence and robotic escape the human control?
Yes, see, human control. See, AI and robotics taking over human control is a matter of concern that many people will raise, but we are not at that stage. See, AI and robots of today, that is being made today, or that will be made for the next decade or so, are all only things that work within a narrow field. See, the robotics that we saw in that insurance claim, that example itself, I had shown the process where it has a good handshake with a human being, right? The insurance claim robot is not deciding whether I will give you the money or not. It is handshaking with the human being. That is the way robotics and AI should be designed. If it is designed appropriately, then it will not take over human control. Okay. And robots cannot do anything and everything. See, the technology has not matured to a level where you can put a robot and replace a human being for no task, for no full job, I would say. For a certain task you can do. See, the doctor's diabetic retinopathy, it is only the image processing part that the robot has done. But everything else, finally, the doctor does. Finally, the doctor will verify the report. And if needed, override the report also. If the report doctor feels is wrong, he can override that. So these are the ways that products are being made. Robotics taking over human being is something science fiction today. Okay, but will it happen after 50 years? I don't know. But it will not happen today, or even in the next 1 or 2 decades, it will not happen. That's what I feel.
Sir, I have a question. How human intervention can be reduced?
Can you repeat that?
Yes, sir. I was saying that how human intervention can be reduced as far as the security of a nation is being concerned with the help of AI or robotics.
As far as security, see, security, one is security. When you say security, our physical security forces are the Army, Navy, and Air Force, right? So the defense, which consists of Army, Navy, and Air Force, they adopt technologies. DRDO, for example, researches on a lot of areas where defense, for defense applications, how various technologies can be used. For example, drones are being used heavily in defense. There are a lot of companies which make drones only for defense purpose, right? In fact, very recently there was a drone attack in Kashmir, right, Jammu Kashmir. So defense technology is researching a lot. They are for the security of nation. They research and they adopt a lot of these things. As far as the other civilian side is concerned, police department is now adopting these technologies. From a cyber world, cyber security is a key area, right? So cyber criminals are getting caught through cyber security. Cyber security adopts AI. So AI can be applied for cyber security. That in itself is a specialty of domain. So these are all. I saw one question from someone asking, what is the difference between IoT and robotics? See, IoT is about embedding the sense part of your see, robotics, we saw that it's about sense, think, and act, right? So if you can do the sense, think, and act, in fact, IoT is coming to picture. The sense part is being done by IoT. As we saw in that diabetic retinopathy case, the sense is being done through a camera, and that camera senses the picture and then captures it, right? That's an IoT, I would say. But not every IoT is robotics, but every robotics has got some IoT there. That's the way I would say. Many cases, IoT will capture through a sensor the data and then transfer it into some cloud where the analysis happens, and then some action takes place, not necessarily in that hardware, but could be outside also. So they are overlapping fields, I would say. Every robotics has got an IoT, but not every IoT has got a robotics. That's the way to look at it. So I see.
One more question is there.
Yeah.
Quantum computers are going to be new master of AI, machine learning in near future, or it will act as an add-on to AI.
So see, quantum computer is a very new field. Okay, AI itself is new. Quantum computer is even more niche, I would say. All right. So these things are in research, I would say. So will one take over the other? Which one will quantum computers take over AI or add on? I don't know. So see, AI is, I would say, quantum computing is to deal with computing as such, and AI within it, AI and machine learning are certain ways of building intelligence. Right, for building that intelligence, you can tomorrow, if quantum computing is enabled enough, then you can apply quantum computing. But today not. It is no AI that a common man uses is using quantum computer, to my knowledge. These are all in research. Companies like Google are researching it. Facebook, Google, they are all researching it, and it is still in very nascent stage, I would say. To come into shape, it will take time, right? Yeah, so someone is asking, can drone is also a part of IoT? See, drone is sensing, right? Drone, you have got a sensor there. So drone can be called as a, it is doing the same what is written there. So it connect the cloud and receiving and transferring data. That's correct. Drone is, for practical purposes, drone is like a robot only, right? Drone is a particular type of robot which will fly and sense and then capture the data. Yeah, there was some point, Professor, you are telling.
I think no more questions are here. If anybody is willing to ask questions, you can send through a mail, so we can hand over to sir, and sir, if sir is ready for that, so I think it will be convenient. Someone has written a question. This question is from Fatima. I like the camera installed to check the people who are driving without helmet or not following traffic rules. They are charged with heavy fine as their vehicle number photo is clicked. We can install sensors, cameras, drones for those who throw waste on roads so as to control waste management. So from robotics and automation, we can control waste management.
Yeah, this is a good point. Okay, so in fact, there are some research happening where people are trying to build an AI based system that will do an image capture of a motor vehicle and then see whether that vehicle has done a traffic violation, and if so, then capture its license plate, read the license plate number, and then decide whether you want to send it to the police station for an action or whatever be it, right? So this is a good area where AI can be applied, computer vision techniques can be applied.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, I have a question. A few months back, I just hear this news from any channel, or I don't know. I'm not very sure about that. The government is restricted Zomato, Swiggy for drone delivery. Are these not good for for delivery the food items or some medical app? Yeah.
Yeah, so in fact, see, it has to meet the regulatory compliance norms, Professor. So in India, the regulatory norms are not at there for flying a drone, right? Because drone can create harm also. That's what we saw in the Jammu Kashmir case there, right? Which happened just a few days back, right? Where a drone suddenly out of the dark came and then attacked a air base or whatever. So if into civilian areas, if this is allowed without proper control, it might create problem, right? So that's where the regulatory bodies are working in defining that, and it's a longer time to take that, to arrive at that. Meanwhile, some other countries, I have heard the China and few other countries are allowing right now. They are allowing it in a very restricted way, in some restricted areas, for drone to for Amazon to use drones in delivering the items to the doorstep. So there, see, with technology, you have the positive side and negative side, right? So the negative
Yes,
side
yes.
should be controlled first of all, and then given to allow the positive side. That's what. That's why regulatory bodies are there for every area.
Yeah, because everything must be user friendly also among the
Correct.
citizens of any country.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, sir, I have one more question. It's not a question, just a small request. Actually, these some of the students are from first year background, second year, third year, and final year also. So they are from different domains like electronics and communication, mechanical, and sales with the AI branch and data science. So I just want to put a request, like if you have some small projects in which our students can contribute. So, because some of them have good knowledge of data science or data structure algorithm, because most of the students are good in codings, so they are good programmers also. So, if we can solve some problems, if you put some problems in the form of projects, we can do.
Yeah.
Even we have a research and innovation center at our institute, PSIT. So we would like to do some collaboration with you so that our student can learn from you time to time. In other times, you can suggest us what should be done.
Okay. Sure. See, I work with. I am an independent consultant, right? I work with other startups who are working in the related fields like AI and other digital areas, right? So if there is a need for something like this, I will surely reach out to you. As such, in case if your lab is doing something, for example, like a statement one person may write about building robots or AI for in the traffic violation case. If there is some project like that, maybe probably I can look at that and then provide some input or advice. Not a problem, right? Or we can conceive something and then make it possible in your lab or whatever be it, right? At least I can give high level guidelines. And if something is needed on the industry side that I am aware of, I will surely get back to you as to who can help in that.
Definitely, because we are interested in doing some innovation. So because yeah.
Sure.
Okay, sir, your talk was very awesome. It's completely like the people are enlightened, all the audience, and they were listening continuously without any disturbance and any noise. So I think this was awesome. Even I'm not belonging this field, but I was listening very carefully throughout your talk. Okay, sir, I would like to give some thanks, which is usual meaning because it's needed here. Sir, you discussed about a lot of things like AI impact across different sections, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, insurance, banking, motor vehicle claim process, a scope of area for AI robotics in animal processes, case study in the means of video for traffic, for injured vehicle, and some others thing also, robotics driven motor vehicle, industry domain applications, healthcare, medical. Here we have listened about abysmal doctor patient ratio
Yeah.
and the video of robotics in healthcare, diabetic retinopathy detection,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
this is in very demand, I think, in healthcare medical science, because most of the people are experienced, I think, each and every after fifth, or we can say each 10th people, 10th citizen in our country is experiencing diabetes. So I think it's very needed here. So
Exactly.
you have discussed, yes, you have discussed about robotics-based automation, key technology solution aspects, some skills involved in the model building, product management aspects for AI and robotics, and product vision. We should have clear vision regarding product designing. You discussed about product, how to start product vision, and product vision, user experience, design thinking, industry adaptation of AI, and then program delivery management, ethics, which are most important. Anyone can claim. So what you people are doing, have you taken a consent? Even IEEE basically look after these ethics in the form of MG. They always used to talk about ethics as IEEE, because everything,
Exactly.
even issue of, yes, even the issue of logo using, this is most important. Even the people are applying artificial intelligence here also, so the designing and the logos and lot of things we can do some work. So hopefully we are waiting for your consent, your kind consent for the upcoming projects, so that our student will be engaged with you. Okay, so
Yeah.
even I would like to engage with you. I belong to physics domain, but would like to work with you if
Oh,
I
thank
have.
you. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback, Dr. Aparna. So it was really very nice to interact with the team. So through every interaction, it's a learning for me also, right? So I am also learning through interactions, definitely, right? It's good to
Yes,
know
sir.
that the students received it and then they find it useful. And it's also
Yes,
good to know what are students' interest in pursuing this area, right? So we
Yes,
can
sir.
surely, as I told, if your institute has got in any area where I can help with some input, I'll be happy to do that, right? Surely. And
Yes, sir.
I would also look forward to engage if I see some opportunity in the industry, as I
Sure.
independently consult in across startups. If I see here in Bangalore, I mainly consult with startups in Bangalore. If I see some areas, definitely I can. Meanwhile, if there is something where you have got where I want to interact with them, I can do that, and then that way I get to know who knows what technology, what is the level of comfort level of handling different technologies. These things I will also get an idea, right?
Sure, sir. Sure,
Sure,
sir.
sure,
Sure.
sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shrikant, sir, for delivering such a wonderful session today and enlightening us, all of us here with science involved in medical equipments and different kind of things here. Most appealing thing that happened to me was that simple and straight forward explanation done by you, sir. It was truly a remarkable talk. I would like to thank Professor Satish Singh for encouraging us to hold such high level webinars like that of Shrikant for the benefit of all IEEE community members here at UP section. He is the chair of IEEE UP section. I owe it thanks to Professor Director Sanjeev Kumar Balla sir for his guidance and support throughout. Thank you, sir. I thank Chairman sir, Mr. Pranveer Singh, Chairperson ma'am, Mrs. Nirmala Singh, MD ma'am, Ms. Shifali Raj for their constant push and support on organizing webinars and virtual workshops. And then any webinar is successful, what it has a good audience to which take an interest into the proceedings. And today I owe my thanks to such a wonderful audience for being in time and listening with grace and patience to serve. Thank you, dear faculty members and all students And all IEEE members, special thanks to Astha, who basically organize everything with Kunal. Kunal is chair of this Robotics Society chapter. He is
Yeah.
a first year student. So
Very good, very
first of all, I would like to give thanks to all my dear children. You planned very well this webinar. And now I can do some relax. Yes, you people are an awesome one. You show all your talent here, so you can organize very silently in a very good way, in a very positive way, in anything, in all any event. Okay, thank you so much, sir. So
Thank you.
Kunal, can we have a picture?
Sure, ma'am, sure.
Good memories, yes, please. Thank you, Anita ma'am. You have supported a lot. Kunal, are you doing?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Should be ready? Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
sure. This is my humble request to all of you, dear panelists. Please put on your camera. Astha, Manya, Divyansh, please. Nitya, Prakriti, Mansi, Jalaj.
Okay, so I have taken the photograph.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Good, thank
Sir,
you.
I will keep connecting with you.
Oh, yeah,
So that we can participate in different projects, especially my students, because they are very keen to join with you. So we are looking at problem waste management also, how to control that with the help of by applying artificial intelligence. I'm very sure that you will guide us in that sense, and
Sure.
we are waiting for future projects.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. And then, yeah, I'd like to especially, mention that your students have been very proactive in taking this action and making this happen, right? I'd like to appreciate Astha, Kunal, and others
Yes.
who have been very active. And in fact, I didn't know about a lot of people from the side, right? So they were very proactive in reaching out to me. And then, as you rightly told, they made this happen without any hiccups. So they were very reachable. It was a very beautifully arranged event, and then I really appreciate the students. They are very proactive in action. It's very nice
Yes,
to interact.
thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, sir. Have a nice day, sir.
Yeah, you too.